The Seahawks linebacker situation this year has been complicated. The Seahawks had experienced one of the most stable linebacker rooms in the league. B-Wags has been the leader there since 2012, aside from his one-year stint with the Rams. Jordan Brooks never really lived up to his first-round pedigree, but he was a consistent presence for the past 4 years. All of that changed this offseason. With Mike Macdonald's new scheme coming in, he needed a change at linebacker. Enter Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker, the linebackers of the future here in Seattle. Well, not quite. Jerome Baker got traded away at the deadline, and Tyrell Dodson got surprisingly cut a couple of weeks later. But the Seahawks really did upgrade at both positions. Since Tyrese Knight has joined the lineup coming off of the bye, this defense has allowed just above 13 points per game. Today we're diving into the tape and discussing how the combination of Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight has revolutionized this defense. We're going to start with Ernest Jones because he has been nothing short of incredible, particularly in run defense. I'm going to show a whole bunch of tape that illustrates this point as well, but I wanted to start by showing some statistics that I charted to show the transformation that Jones has made on this team. Mike Macdonald wants to stop the run with a light box. A light box means that you have as many defenders as the offense has blockers. That is usually a formula for getting run all over, but if you have a well-taught scheme and players who can make plays, you can pull it off. And that has been the change in this defense. Not only have they been far more effective at stopping the run from light boxes since Ernest Jones got here, but it's also allowed Mike Macdonald to call light boxes more, and I have the stats to back that up. Per my charting, which you can find a full article on my process over on the Patreon, the Seahawks have surrendered 4.27 yards per carry before Ernest Jones got here when they're playing with a stacked box. A stacked box is where you have more defenders than the offense has blockers in the box. It is the opposite of a light box. While they were in those light boxes, the Seahawks gave up an alarming 6.13 yards per carry. The Seahawks were only able to be in light boxes at just 40% of their run defense plays because surrendering over 6 yards per carry is not a recipe for success. The Seahawks were not good enough at stopping the run from a light box for Mike Macdonald to rely on it, and that was a problem. But once Ernest Jones entered the scene, those numbers changed drastically. In weeks 8 through 14, the Seahawks allowed 3.13 yards per carry with a stacked box. That is a big improvement and is really encouraging. As for the yards per carry with a light box, that fell from over 6 without Ernest Jones to just 4.83 yards per carry with Ernest Jones. That change is phenomenal. Holding the offense to under 5 yards a carry when you're really focusing on stopping the pass, that is totally acceptable. And to me, that is what has opened up this defense. Now the Seahawks are stopping the run in light boxes at 65%. That is a 25% jump. Mike Macdonald can now trust this defense to stop the run with a light box, and that allows him to get more creative on the back end to shut down the passing attack. To be clear, there's definitely other factors at play here, and relying on-off split statistics like this is a dangerous game, but the difference is so stark, and to me, Ernest Jones is the biggest reason for this change. So now let's dive into the tape and show how Ernest Jones has transformed this run defense. This play comes from Week 12 against the 49ers. Often good run defense comes down to everyone doing their job, and we're going to look at examples of that later on in the video. But here, this is just a great player making a great play. The Seahawks are in a 2-deep structure. This is really how Mike Macdonald likes to run his coverages, which that's fine, but it does make stopping the run more difficult. Now that weight is going to fall to Ernest Jones. Here the Niners are running inside zone. This concept is built off of a pair of combo blocks right up the middle as the Niners aim to reset the line of scrimmage. And that is what they're able to do. Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams each get pushed back almost 2 yards, and that really gives Christian McCaffrey a good starting point for this run. But Ernest Jones simply gets off of this block. He knows that the combo block is coming up to get him, and he's able to prevent it with his clean footwork and anticipation. Linebackers are taught to use shuffle steps. It allows them to quickly move around blocks and react to what is happening in front of them. Here, Ernest Jones keeps his feet low and landing together so he can quickly cut and react as he flows towards the ball. Once he gets into a good position, he extends his arm to keep himself clean, and he ducks underneath the blocker. After he's free, he makes a strong tackle on CMC to hold him to just 2 yards. It's not just that Ernest Jones can do this, but it is how consistently he does it. These are not splash plays, this is just how he plays. He shows this again on a play against the 49ers. There's a lot of eye candy here that the Niners are trying to use on this play, but Jones doesn't bite. He quickly reads the blocks, gets to his landmark, and ducks around Trent Williams to join in on the tackle. I can keep going, but let's do just one more. Again, against the 49ers, Ernest Jones is jumping around blockers and smoothly navigating to the ball carrier. I broke this play down in a recent video because it's also a really cool design from Mike Macdonald, but this time just watch Ernest Jones. The way that he weaves to the ball and makes these tackles is simply not typical for linebackers. All of these plays are just from one game, and trust me, he makes plays like this every single week. He is just such a big impact as a run defender because of these types of plays. It's not just his quickness, there's lots of quick linebackers in the league, but it really is all about his processing. He knows where the ball is going to end up, and then he's able to use his physical tools to go get there. Ernest Jones is one of the best run-defending linebackers in the league. We'll talk more about that in just a bit, but he's been nothing short of a revelation for this defense because of how impactful he has been against the run. As for weaknesses with Ernest Jones, it is really all in coverage. It's not that he's a bad coverage defender. We just saw a fantastic pick in this previous week, but for the most part, he's just fine in coverage. He doesn't really have the long speed of elite coverage linebackers. Here against the Bills, they're able to isolate him on an athletic tight end and burn him with the crosser. It's not like Jones was even slow to react. He just isn't fast enough to keep up with this speed. In zone, he's also not quite as active as you might hope. He's a good tackler, but we really haven't seen him locking onto assignments or really contesting throws regularly. Again, he's not bad enough in coverage where teams can just attack him over and over, but he's also not going to be a consistent playmaker for you. Another aspect that we haven't talked about with Ernest Jones is he's a really good blitzer. He doesn't have a ton of pass rush moves to beat offensive linemen one-on-one, but if you get him on a running back, he's going to win. Mike Macdonald loves blitzing his linebackers, and Ernest Jones has been a really good fit for that as well. Ernest Jones has completely changed this defense with his arrival, and that is why the Seahawks need to re-sign him this offseason. I would say the Hawks fans are being kind of unrealistic about how much this is going to cost, so let me get the number out of the way first, and then I'll explain it. I think the conversation starts at around $15 million per year. Now, yes, that is a lot of money for a linebacker in the NFL, but I want to explain my reasoning. Right now in the league, there are 3 linebackers who make more than $15 million per year. Their names are Roquan Smith at $20 million per year, Fred Warner at $19, and Tremaine Edmunds at $18. Now, Edmunds is an outlier. He's a freaky athlete who got paid off of a breakout season in free agency, but he's never really been that good. But those other 2 players, they're the best linebackers in the league in Roquan Smith and Fred Warner. Now, you could hope that the Hawks could reference JOK or Patrick Queen to get it to around $13 million per year. I think that's the best case scenario. But to me, Ernest Jones is worth much closer to Roquan Smith and Fred Warner. Yes, those guys offer so much more in coverage, but for this episode, I went and watched a few games of each of these guys, and Ernest Jones is clearly a superior run defender. Out of those 3, I would probably take Ernest Jones for Mike Macdonald's system because of how effective he has been at stopping the run from a light box. That is what Mike Macdonald wants from his linebackers. So yeah, probably 14 to 18 million per year, but if I'm John Schneider, I would be willing to get closer to 20 if that's what it's going to take to keep this guy. He is that important to the defense. Hey 12s, if you enjoyed these Seahawks film breakdowns, please consider subscribing so you don't miss any content as the Seahawks start pushing towards the playoffs. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. But if you're going to have an expensive linebacker like Ernest Jones, you'd better have a cheap one to complement him. And I think the Seahawks have that as well. Tyrese Knight has been nothing short of a great rookie linebacker. They simply aren't supposed to look this good this quickly. This play shows exactly what you're looking for from your linebacker when they're defending the run. I think the biggest misconception in the NFL about run defense is that it's somehow simple or just a test of brute force. It is actually really cerebral and often more about recognizing what is coming and everyone being on the same page about the scheme that they're going to use to stop it. And that is what happens here. Now, if you're just drawing out a traditional run-fit alignment, you would say that Leonard Williams here has the C gap and Tyrice Knight has the B gap. Hankins and Ernest Jones have the A gap, Murphy is on the strong side B gap, with Spoon in the C gap and Hall all the way out there in the D gap. That's certainly how you might draw it up on paper, but that's not how the NFL works. This is GH counter from the 49ers, which features down blocks on the front side and a backside guard and tight end pulling to lead block. The Niners are creating numbers on the front side, so the Seahawks need to stop this with their scheme. Here they are running a spill and kill scheme. We're not going to get into the weeds in this video, but here Leonard Williams is really not setting the edge like you would expect from an edge defender. What he's actually trying to do is spill Christian McCaffrey outside of him by clogging up those interior lanes. To do this, he quickly recognizes what is happening and attacks the puller to close the space. Now let's watch Knight. Instead of filling what you might say is his gap, he quickly jumps outside because he is the player that Big Cat is trying to spill the running back towards. He can't overcommit, but he needs to keep the edge contained because that is not what Leonard Williams is focusing on. McCaffrey tries to go inside of Williams, so Knight sheds the block and he goes to help with the tackle, but he was ready if McCaffrey bounced this outside and he was fulfilling his run fit responsibilities. And that is what you're looking for. That is run defense at an NFL level at an NFL speed. And the fact that you're seeing this from a rookie who still has less than 300 snaps in his NFL career is tremendously impressive. The funny thing about Tyrice Knight is that he's very similar to Ernest Jones. He is an excellent run defender who brings power and speed with good processing. Neither of them are really special in coverage, but they're both solid enough to not get picked on too much. Knight also brings some really good pass rushing highlights, just like Ernest Jones does. Here he shows off tremendous power and just throws his blocker, in this case a full offensive lineman, completely back. This is another trait that Mike Macdonald wants in his linebackers. He wants to be able to blitz them effectively, and to me, both Ernest Jones and now Tyrice Knight are good at that. Now, we've talked a lot about all of the good stuff that Knight has been doing, and trust me, there's a lot of positives, but at the end of the day, he is still a rookie, and there are still rookie moments. Let's look at this one. Here the Cardinals are in a 3-by-1 formation, which is actually pretty complicated for the Seahawks to defend. This isn't just any 3-by-1 formation. This formation puts Marvin Harrison Jr., the Cardinals' best receiver, in the slot as the number 3. If that was just a tight end, you wouldn't have to worry too much about him burning you deep, but since there is speed at number 3, you need to have an answer. The easiest way to think about this is just to go over what would happen if all of the Cardinals receivers were going vertical. At the top of our screen, Josh Jobe is locked on the number 1, so he would take him vertical. Kobe Bryant has the vertical of number 2, but where this gets interesting is Julian Love is the trick safety in this coverage. That means he has the vertical from the number 3 on the opposite side of the formation. At the end of the day, this is a variation of quarters with that trick safety to help on the 3 receiver side. Now let's look at Tyrice Knight. In this coverage, he has the flat to the bottom of our screen, but he also has a run fit responsibility. Since this is a hard play action, the Cardinals are pulling a guard to sell this fake even more, and Knight needs to respect the threat of this being a run before he gets to his coverage assignment. But here Knight is simply late to recognize the run fit and go get to his spot. And again, this is what I mean when I say he has had a bunch of rookie moments. Knight was the last one to see that this is a fake, and that is what allows this little check down to go for 12 yards. Now, Tyrice Knight also shows off his athleticism, and this probably could have been an even bigger play if he wasn't such an athletic player, but this is still a rookie moment for your linebacker. Tyrice Knight is going to be a really good player. He has had plenty of rookie moments where he's not correctly identifying where the ball is going, and I don't think he'll ever be a great coverage defender, but he's already been a good run defender and a solid blitzer, and that is more than enough from a number 2 linebacker. And maybe the best part about Tyrice Knight is he allows you to pay Ernest Jones. Knight is only going to make a little over $1 million per year over the next 3 years. That means once you pay Ernest Jones, you still won't be spending a tremendous amount of money on your linebacker duo because Tyrice Knight is so cheap. He's a good player, and I think with more reps, he's going to be great. John Schneider has completely rebuilt this linebacker room. I know that the Seahawks still need to re-sign Ernest Jones, but I'm pretty confident that is going to happen. The Seahawks need him, and I think he wants to stay in Seattle after a turbulent last year where he got traded multiple times. Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight are going to be a great duo. Props to John Schneider for drafting Knight, who has been nothing short of a gem in the 4th round, and the trade for Ernest Jones has been fantastic as well. This offseason, there was a lot of uncertainty around this room, and now I think the future seems pretty clear. Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight have changed this defense, and the future for the Seahawks at linebacker seems very bright. Thanks for watching, and go Hawks.